Thank you all for being here. This is a very wonderful and exciting time on the planet, in our lives, on the journey. It just felt like the timing was really right to have a retreat where we talked about and explored what we're calling the wisdom of joy. And we've sent handouts out that have kind of summarized this retreat because it's a lot of material in this retreat, a lot of information. It's going to be somewhat of understanding how when we leave samsara, when we leave the personal, analyzing, judging mind, there is an innate kind of wisdom that arises that is experienced as joy and bliss and ecstasy. And this is in the early stages of the path, this is considered mundane samadhi, where we're very much in the world, but we're just starting to get introduced into more of a sublime state of residing in existence. And it is a very joyful experience. We eventually leave behind our personal minds and come into a wisdom mind. The nature of mind, which is pretty much what creates all of our worlds, is really going to be explored in this retreat. I think this Sangha, which is so much Sharon Sangha, Jennifer Sangha, we have people here that have been part of Vajra Vidya for quite some time, are very advanced. We're really ready for the understanding of these more esoteric principles. And we want to combine that with direct experience. What is this wisdom that we're seeking? What is this joy? What is this samadhi experience? So that's a very small encapsulation of what this weekend's going to be about. Did you want to jump in, or should I keep talking?
I can jump in, or
Okay.
either way. Yeah, beyond the conceptualization is such an innocence. There's an innocence beyond conceptualization that really shines. It shines as joy. It shines as love. It shines as all of the attributes that the ego considers to be virtues, but they aren't virtues or attributes in that dimension. They are natural, inherent isness. And that can just sound so defeating, I think, in a certain way, if we're not experiencing that, or if, like Paul was talking about this morning, there are emotions happening, such as grief about the planet or personally or whatever, that don't set well with the definitions of what ecstasy and bliss are in the mind's description and conceptualization. So there's this idea that they don't exist together. And, you know, they're seemingly opposite in that realm. But beyond that, and it does sort of sound fantastical in a certain sort of way to our conceptual understandings. Beyond that is this innocence that is, well, some call it basic goodness. I call it uncaused love. Love without cause. It's a dimension of reality beyond causality. And I think that's what we're all really moving naturally. We aren't doing it. We don't make the grass grow. We don't get ourselves from 9 to 49. The Creator does that. And we are naturally moving into a time of what our minds would consider to be expansion because of the limits that we have been living in for so long, so it feels like expansion, but it's original. It's original. It's who we are. We can't get away from it any more than fire can get away from heat, or water can get away from wet. We can't get away from it. We are that. So these limits are beginning to drop away, and the shining, radiant joyfulness, peacefulness, lovingness that is having way, is the way that it kind of downloads here. I think a very useful, if not the number one ally on this journey, and especially at retreat, is what we call surrender. And for some of us, surrender doesn't work. You know, I've had women in retreat be like, hell no. I get that as a woman, but this is deeper than that. It's a relinquishing. Here it just feels like a giving away, a giving away. I just had a beautiful meeting with the Khenpo, and he was like, it's a relaxing. Everything is a relaxing. It begins with relaxing. I don't use that word a lot just because then the mind goes, well, I'm not relaxed at all. You know, it's like, are you kidding me? It's deeper than the conceptual understanding of relax. It's that sense of the out-breath that happens real naturally. I'm here. Here I am. I'm here. It's undeniable. I'm here. Here I am. It's not something we can deny. It's that kind of relaxed. It just is. It's simple, even though it's so profound and beyond the conceptual understanding. So we have to be willing to let things come and let things go. And we often think we're standing in resistance to what's coming, but believe me, like if we look into it, it's letting those things go that's really hard. I'm not letting that go. That's me. That's the world. That's how it is. So there has to be this willingness to be naked of all of that. And to give way to this joy. And Ani Lodro has written out I told her she should publish her handout. There's lots of ways and means. What I hope we can embrace, and the invitation is that it's not distant or far, even though it may seem like we need ways and means to get there. It's not distant, it's not far. It ever is right here as all of this. So even as we're experiencing that linear dimension of ways and means and wise action and things arising and things going and dissolving, the remembering, there has to be some remembering, if not remembering, reacquainting with, or even just faith, that it's not distant, it's not far, it's the shared true nature. All the masters have said it. And here we are sitting in this tradition that has, through very, very extreme circumstances, genocide, exile, and here we are. That was downloading so deeply for me coming into this retreat, because we have so many expressions in the world right now and there's a lot of other expressions too, but the ones that get the loudest media coverage, I guess, or the loudest loudspeaker to shout over, are the eye for an eye stuff, the force against force. You do this, I'll do that. And here we're sitting in this humbleness of this temple with this tradition that has decided very definitively through the deepest circumstances to not participate in that. And that kind of blows my mind. So thank you. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, thank you to the lineage.
To the lineage, yeah. It's really something to not just, I mean, we are participating in that too as we sit here, and we can be open. You know, in the Full Circle welcome letter, there's like water bottle, for all of the like, I need to check, and be prepared for retreat. But I think the one that people skip over the most is open mind, open heart. I put it in red, right at the top. But, I mean, what does it really mean? What does it really mean? But it is primary. Because how will we even be receptive to this and the true nature being alive and enlivened in consciousness with the closed limits that we feel comfortable with? You know? So we can embrace, we're together, we're safe, we can embrace what comes, embrace it as it goes, and relax, enjoy, and remember, and be willing to really be sincere with, you know, because what I see a lot is there's this recognition, realization even, and then the matter of minutes that go by between the realization and the referencing, conceptualizing, grabbing, identifying, and narrating the realization is like, you know, we tend to do it. And then the realization is, it's not that it's not there, but it's so overlaid with what we've decided to say about it, and we can practice here actually just embodying it and living from it. And then that mysteriousness, that uncertainty, that beyond, that innocence beyond conceptualization shines forth as a inherent, innate joyfulness through all circumstances, grief, shattering of, here the last 3 years it's been a shattering of like ideas and concepts around familial bonds, you know, but if one comes back, here I am. You can't, the joy is undeniable. It is vibratorily, I mean, I have to tone it down, or I'm just going to shake my way out of the chair and like, yeah, you know, that's just the way it is here. But there's no denying it. Go look at a plant or a tree or anything that we call nature and understand that that is, there's no human, there's no personhood, no identified selfness outside of nature. There's nothing of the sort. That reflection is just that, a reflection of what actually is.
That was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's so wonderful to be here with you.
It is.
And with our teacher, Sharon.
Yeah.
All of us here. It's so amazing. Sometimes I'm overcome. Jen is talking about that. But when I sit here and I just look at all of your beautiful faces, I don't think we realize how gorgeous we are. We definitely don't. We should be celebrating all the time. One of the things that I'd wanted to bring in through this first session is, we both, I know a lot of us do counseling, do therapy with people, do all sorts of modalities to serve humanity. And one thing I see that comes up a lot is that people that I speak with, aspirants, and myself as well, talk about where they are in terms of enlightenment. Because there is that desire inside to be happy, and we have this idea that enlightenment will make us happy. And of course, yes, that's true. And so we look at where we want to go and try to move into these next steps on the path. And in Buddhism, one of the things that you learn very early on the path is that the road to enlightenment is actually eons long. It could happen in one lifetime. If you read Milarepa's story, someone like that, yes. And it could happen to any one of us. But more than likely, it's going to evolve over time. And then for us, there's a certain easing into it, so we're not just thinking about the next thing, the next thing, the next empowerment, the next juicy, ecstatic, spiritual experience, but we're here now claiming, recognizing what is already here that we have awakened to. I think that's that was a very important part for me to understand on the path. I didn't realize how my mind was racing ahead to, what is this enlightenment? Let me go get it, right? Which is another form of grasping, right? Elizabeth Callahan, who is the translator for a lot of the more advanced teachings of Tibetan Buddhism, she told a story of how Kalu Rinpoche, very high Rinpoche in Tibetan Buddhist tradition, he was asked that later in his life, he was asked, where are you on the path? Yeah. He's a very accomplished Lama, supernatural abilities, that level, right? And he said that if he was in a room with a door on the other end, and he was in a chair at that one end, and the door was on the other end, and the room was like a couple of 100 yards long, he would be just rising out of his chair. And that's where he was on the path. And I love that so much because it brings a certain amount of relaxation and calm. I mean, if this amazing being, and so many like him, so many beings that we met in Nepal were just astonishing in their presence. If they are looking at it as in that way, then I can probably relax a little bit about it. It's not a race. If it doesn't happen this lifetime, oh my God. So, I think just speaking about what we're speaking about, what Jen is saying, what I'm preparing to say, how this retreat is going to unfold, brings us into that space of closer to maybe not completely realizing the lack of identity of the self, because that is an advanced realization, but certainly thinning things out, where our minds aren't spinning so much. We're not experiencing the world as a constant assessment, a constant I like, I don't like in every moment. And that is what, in Buddhism, and in other traditions too, I think what we're talking about can be applied to every tradition, because every tradition is working with the nature of mind and our realization of how our mind works, retraining it, and eventually either dismissing or leaving the state of the busy mind. We literally are able to exit, which means exiting suffering and samsara. So on this path, which is eons long, I also feel it's a very important key to know that it's very, very early on in the path that we actually leave suffering. It doesn't happen at the threshold of Buddhahood. It happens in the first and second stages, right? And, we can talk about any tradition as in having 5 stages or 10 stages or 80 stages. There's all the different ways to break it down. The way we're going to be talking about it, or the way I am experiencing it and learning more and more, is looking at it through 5 stages, which have levels, of course, inside themselves. But on the very first level, with the recognition of the way I'm thinking, the things I'm thinking about are inaccurate. The way I've mapped out the world, because I've grown up in a culture that teaches me a certain amount of conduct and how to survive in the world. And if I do these things that people have trained me and educated me to do, I'll be okay. Right? So that's what's fed to us. And so we grow up with. And then we come onto the path and we hear, you have to pretty much throw away everything you're believing right now. And that's truly literal. We find that, very little of any of it is really going to be beneficial, right, for spiritual growth. I mean, if we just want to make lots of money and have a nice house, well, yeah, the way we're brought up enforces those goals. There's kind of a purpose of life, right? Culturally, we're taught. The spiritual path turns that upside down. So the unraveling and the letting go, it's a big deal to everything we know, question so much of what we've learned and how we think we need to cope. We actually are going to be examining and throwing out so much of it. So then what? We don't know what's going on and how to live here and what to do. And that is a concern that comes up on the path, right? Because we're like, okay, I let all this go, but now what? Yeah. In the Buddhist tradition, in more of advanced teachings, which are now public, actually, so many of these very kind of esoteric, guru to disciple oral transmission teachings have been written about and recorded and are now disseminated and translated. So any one of us can pick up one of these books written by, Third Karmapa, or, someone that has pulled down a term or a treasure teaching, and read about, well, all of this is negated, all of this is like not happening, it's not really true, it's not how things work, it's not how we want our minds to work or what we want our minds to be focused on, but here's what's true. And the here's what's true takes us from worldly concerns and even a worldly physical body to a more sublime state, an advanced transcendent state. We're still here, we can still be engaged, and we are better at engaging at that level than we ever were in the kind of conditioned human mind, right? But this new level encompasses a world system, right? It's not just this planet. We're no longer Earth-centric. Like the Earth is here and everything else is happening all around us, but the Earth is the center of everything. And in a certain way, culturally, that's some of the message that we get, right? We realize, no, there's a much bigger picture. The ground of being is at the center of the whole thing. Right, what we call Dharmakaya. And then all that's arising from Dharmakaya, this ground of being, this oneness consciousness, there's so many names for it, is the phenomena that's not only creating this world that we're experiencing, but it's creating all the other worlds in our world system, in our billion world system. And most of these worlds are much more advanced than we are. Right? Which isn't hard to believe. I mean, we're as humans, like we're still actually warring with each other, right? The bar's so low here. We're still in conflict. We're in competition. It's like, oh, how can I, what's in it for me? That's culturally, that's very embedded in us, right? So when we awaken out of that, when we start to find out what it's like for higher beings, how do they think? How do they maneuver? What are their worlds like? It brings in such new information, such a contrast to what we've been fed, right? We almost may feel like, ooh, this is very confusing. And I think that's a very good state to be in, because it means we're jostling, we're letting go, and that this letting go you so brilliantly talked about, that's a big part of this experience. Okay? Who I am is not really accurate. My belief of who I am, what I want, what I like, I have these opinions, I'm right about all these things, okay? We can actually, that's what ultimately really needs to be let go of. And how we got to that point was through constantly either absorbing opinions and belief systems from those around us, or developing it through our ego system, through our mind, based on assessing things. I like, I don't like, and because I like, I'm going to do this, and because I like, this is right. And the same story for aversion. I don't like this, so my opinion about this is this. I don't like Trump, and nobody should like him, and I'm going to make sure I tell everyone why they shouldn't like him. And we go about in our lives like this, and we spend a lot of time talking about what we don't like that other people shouldn't like either, right? I mean, it sounds crazy when we talk about it here. It's like, oh my goodness, what a problem we're in as a humanity. But if we really examine our minds, we actually can catch how it is happening. And again, most traditions, and Buddhism as well, it's very thoughtfully and in a detailed way explained how this happens, to like the nth degree. So we can actually look at our minds with a whole new perspective and cut the root of the things that are creating suffering, samsara, and the world as we see it. Because if all of our assessments were gone, and our capacity and our wanting to map the world out, if that was all gone, we would see things as they really are, which is not how we're seeing things now. Seeing things how they really are, which would be more in, what we call the kayas, dharmakaya, ground of being, sambhogakaya, this kind of dreamlike, illusionary state. And then nirmanakaya, which is, beings that came here and fully awakened are in that nirmanakaya state. Buddha Shakyamuni, Jesus of Nazareth. There's many beings that came and entered into that state, and then they taught. Because at that state, and even far before that state, what we realize is, wow, I am experiencing the world completely differently. There is a joy here that is just innate. I don't have to make it, I don't have to effort it, I don't have to try to force it, it's just here. And we recognize very clearly at that point that most of everybody around us is suffering. is still spinning around in their this is what I want and don't want worlds. And so we feel compelled, because at that point, a lot of bodhicitta is arising. We have a natural compassion. It's part of the ground of being. Yeah, there's a lot of discussion around the ground of being and how, when we move into it, or even just start glimpsing it, because we start glimpsing it before we establish it, we feel this incredible love for ourselves and for others, which does heal this other cultural overlay that makes us feel undeserving or question our self-worth. There's a lot of things that get healed from bringing new states in. We can do it through the therapeutic methods and looking at our mind and, oh, that's not a good way to think, and becoming more positive. Those are all ways too, and we can combine all this if we want. But a quick way is to start experiencing higher dimensions, higher worlds, higher ways of thinking, and just absorb that. Just like we absorbed samsara to, as we were growing, that's basically what happened. We came in here and just absorbed what was other people were experiencing, and that became our experience too. On the spiritual journey, we say no, We unplug from the samsaric existence. So I know we also wanted to... Time goes by so fast.
Which time do we have?
We have it's 11, a little after 11, and we want to do maybe 30 minutes of just silent sitting as we come into the retreat. So maybe at 11:30.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the ground of being can sound very, what are we talking about? And again, one has to be very, well, Ajahn used to just show it, because you can't say it. Less of this, more of this. It's directly borrowed from Ajahn, but it's so great. Because we don't know it, and we never will. There's never going to be a person knowing the ground of being through that personal intellect. That's not the way it works. We can't know it the way we... Oh, I'm touching, this is the silver bracelet. I mean, eventually that's exactly how you know it. You know it in everything, as everything. And the word as becomes very primary in one's language. It's that moving as these flowers, as this table, as these socks, and all the extremely wonderful states as well. But it's not going to be known in the way that the mind thinks it's going to be. Because it is closer than close, you see? It's like the eye trying to see the eye. It needs a mirror. It needs a reflection. Because it is totality, all in all in all. There is no separation, no division, no attributes, no qualifiers, no all of the stuff we count on to objectify something and know it. That's why I used to say, it's deeper than relaxing. It's less than relaxing, but relaxing is close. It's naturalness, we can say. You kind of have to find that door in your experience. Where is the naturalness? When do I feel totally at ease, totally natural? and kind of examine it that way, because that's the doorway right there. That's the door to the sort of inherent, innate, infinite well-being that actually is. And like Ani was so beautifully saying, thank you so much, we can talk about, I can say that, oh, it's what, taken me 3 minutes to say that? Yeah, I'll do that. Well, you know, the cleaning up of the house, Sharon and I were talking about this yesterday. The realization, and then there is this sense of transcendence, which is important, but it's imminent as well. There's a descent into this compelling locality that we call me, and then eventually unfolds into that now behaving and appearing as this. So, easefulness, where, you know, I think this is really important to maybe bring attention to at a retreat called the Wisdom of Joy. The easeful, lighthearted, you know, it's disciplined, but with a lightness of being, rather than this, like, you know, I mean, not that there isn't room for all paths and all ways and means when they are wisely encountered and lived, but there tends to be this, like, I hope I don't blow anybody out first moment with this, but there's this huge focus on trauma. You know, trauma, I've got trauma, I'm wired as trauma. I mean, I get it, me too. I'm not dismissing it, but the attention has become completely enmeshed with this idea that we are traumatized. It's like we're not going to be victims, but we're just going to be traumatized eternally instead. I don't know. I don't know. I get it. Everyone's got their story. There's been a lot of deep water in this particularity, in this case. One of the first times I ever met with Sharon, she was like, "You're a big experiencer. Take it from one who knows, you know? You just got to have the 2x4 or whatever." But trauma is a focus. It's like the Khenpo was talking about this morning. The difference between suffering and grief in its purity, it's the designation. It's how we designate it. It's the category we put it in. It's the way we talk about it. And you can look, I remember that because I couldn't really understand what is this ego thing everyone's talking about. You know, if you just look, continue to look, here, in this case, what it looked like is this never-ending cycle of a thought coming in, mostly narrative, a belief, that's right, oh yeah, for sure. And then it would kick into gear this emotional process, so thought, belief, emotion. So then my body itself really believed it, because like the emotional physiological IV drug had been shot up, and I was like, okay, you know. Then the emotion would reinforce and promote and spawn more thoughts for more beliefs, for more, and that was here, I thought that was life. Oh, that's life. That feels like life. That feels like juice. That feels like living. You know, so giving that up, I guess what I'm trying to say, letting that go, becoming naked of that is actually much more easily said than done, because of these roots that everybody in this room is down to now. down to the roots of those identities, the roots of very unconscious, very conditioned, habitual, collective ways and means to keep separateness alive. And it's no small thing to give that up. It takes sangha and teachers and commitment, all the stuff. It's no small thing to just plunge into eternal mystery and bewilderment. I mean, the process itself is like, hell no. No, thank you. The fingernails as it's circling the drain. I see what's coming. What is something just popped in. I didn't grow up Christian, but a lot of times the scriptural type things, maybe you can help me if I don't get it right, but it's like the birds and the foxes have places and dens and nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. That's what I'm saying. So, yeah, like Rumi said, trade in your cleverness for bewilderment. Be bewildered. But easier said than done, right? Because the deepest stuff will come forward to save the ship. Even if it's total suffering, it feels comfortable in a certain way. More comfortable than like, wait a minute, everything's empty and I am nothing and I just touched upon that and had an actual experience of it and that can't be good. What's going on with that? So like you were saying, it's disorienting, but well mapped out.
Yes. I'm going to bring in just a couple of things we spoke about that we're going to be adding a sitting.
Oh, I wondered about that. Maybe people just want to just let them know it's here as an opportunity rather than make it a formal thing, you think? I don't know.
We're not having a lot of silent sitting this weekend retreat, and we were wondering if there's a call for that, then we can add in an hour during the day to do that. I mean, anyone can come in the shrine at any point. The shrine is open 24 hours. It's always lit up. So we can always come in here just to sit and do meditation. But we don't have like a formal meditation in this retreat. Should we have that? Do people want that? Because I could do it from 1:30 to 2:15, where I'm here and we're all here. Does somebody have a sense of yes or no?
Or just know that that's available.
No. Yeah, well, again, the shrine's open all the time. But sometimes I think it's also nice. We're getting a lot of this information. We're hearing a lot of this. We're moving into kind of a different way of experiencing, really. Because what's happening in the mind is affecting our perceptions, actually. It's actually transforming our perceptions. So sometimes it's nice to, on a retreat like this, where there's a lot of material coming in, to just have 45 minutes to be able to come in, even as a group. So I'll do that from 1:30 to 2:15.
Okay.
We'll just have that. If people want that, we can come in and as a group just sit, just have silent sitting.
Good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's powerful to sit together.
Yeah.
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 Feel where our natural state really is magnified.
Yeah.
We sit in silence together.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
that feels good. We also have, I
We
know
had a question here too. Oh, sorry.
Hi.
Is it possible to incorporate just 15 minutes at the end of these sessions to be able to sit with, in the moment, everything that
Yes.
we listen to?
Yeah. We're going to sit at the end of the session. Mm-hmm.
No. I think that's a lot of times when I'm kind of doing my own practice, I'll just kind of fall into a silent sitting, right? It actually starts happening naturally. It's like, whoa, you know? And the mind will just, I'm not trying to make it stop, but somehow something has shifted. And we'd love for people to have that experience and be able to go deep with that experience, because that's really what, in part, we're trying to establish as awakened beings. This more sublime reality, and we move in the world with that, right? So it's a perfect environment, perfect container to have a retreat which is encouraging that. There's nothing else going on during a retreat, right? I mean, I always suggest we turn our phones off, you know, and just put the outside world at bay for just a few days. It'll be there when we get back, right?
Did anybody else have any questions about like nuts and bolts and that kind of thing? We forgot to ask about that before we go into silence. Oh, okay, sorry. Oh.
We'll do, yeah. No, it's a great question. We'll do a 15 to 30-minute meditation or silent sitting at the end of our
Speaking sessions at the end of speaking sessions.
Which there's one at 10:30 in the morning, and there's one at 3 in the afternoon, and then we'll just have a group silent sitting from 1:30 to 2:15 each day. Okay, and then of course people are welcome to come in here in the evening as well. Yeah. So we had sent out handouts, and we also printed them out because a lot of people told us, I'm trying to read it on my phone, and it's not so conducive to really receiving the material. So we can hand these out to everyone. We'll do that kind of, do you want to do that now?
Also, some of you have experienced this before, but I brought rose oil from the rose garden in Cove. I didn't have time to put it in individual bottles, but this is a big bottle of it, so help yourself to the rose oil. It's just roses from the garden in Cove infused into avocado oil. And it's an ally. I don't know. It's a reflection, especially here. And here is just another small handout if you're wanting to take one. I'll just leave them right here. It's not really a handout, it's just a inspirational reading, you might say. You can. You can use the rose oil internally if you like. A little dabble, do you? The nurse in me goes, start low, go slow. With the, but also you can, use a dropper full on your heart. It's good heart medicine. I don't know, maybe listen, open field listen, before you decide what to do with it, and it'll have its own wisdom and guidance there. But yeah, there isn't anything in it that could hurt anyone internally. It's just roses and avocado oil. I mostly use it like palms of hands, heart.
In terms of the handouts, Jennifer did a beautiful handout that we sent. Do you want to talk about this, or can I?
You can.
Okay.
First of all, I want to say thank you so much for reformatting. This is my lovely pay attention to detail friend. I'm like, I don't even really know what car I'm driving. But she was like, I reformatted the handout, and I was in bliss from that.
Actually, I was thinking about this last night because we'd reformatted Jen's handout, as she just said, and I made a mistake. I'm a Virgo, so that probably explains my anal.
She's
Kind of attention to everything. So I made a mistake
love
in one
it.
of the
I love it.
sentences. And I was like, I ran into your room to like, oh my God, it's already printed and there's this sentence that's a little off. And you had been kind of practicing, so you'd been kind of like in state. You were like in
Yeah.
a completely different
I
place.
I was very, open, very expansive.
And it was just such a good reminder for me that this is what the retreat really is about, about entering into these states, and people won't bother you. You could do this and no one's going to call you on the phone, no one's going to...
That's true.
Yeah, it's like this is our time to have those real deep experiences where we're not going to be, conducive to having a conversation about anything really when we're in those states. And that's the way it should be. It's almost like even when we're practicing, we're almost always ready in case the phone rings, right? Or something gets our attention we have to deal with. And I was thinking about this last night, thinking, no, like this retreat, any retreat, time we set aside for our practice, for our private retreats, should be kind of a clear boundary around it. This is my time. So if I'm not able to hold a conversation with somebody, it's because I'm putting my attention into something that's beyond words. And that we should claim that and feel good about that and allow ourselves to enter into these states. There'll be time enough later.
To integrate it later, yeah.
Yeah. So, and
also, that's not to say, though, that if somebody does need interaction, I mean, Ani and I are definitely here for anybody who... We don't have a retreat leader or anything, and there's not really time for questions, although maybe we will include that after one of the speaking sessions. But I just wanted to say, if you need to reach out, and you know that you need to reach out, reach out. Here I'm in room number 10. And everyone knows where Ani's
we're
room.
both on the same wing, the ground floor, on the side of the office. So come see us if you need anything, or anything comes up. And it's fine. If there are questions and you don't want to speak your questions, because we do want questions and answers, especially for some of the material, that is new material for some of us. You can write your question down, you could send it to us in an email, you could write it and we'll put a basket at the back and just put it in the basket, and we'll address any questions that come in question and answer times, which will be like end of sessions also.
And that goes for Zoomers too. Hey, Zoomers.
Yeah. Hello. And then all the handouts we did send out to all of our Zoom guests as well, so you all have it on your computers. And we sent the last set last night. And I just wanted to say that in Jen's handout, she has inquiries. She has 4 inquiries, which are kind of like ways that you want to...
Yeah, they were generated from... I've done, I don't know how many online courses. They're all on the website. All the material is there. And when Ani was asking me if I wanted to provide a handout, I thought, I don't know. I didn't have a huge amount of time because I was getting ready to travel and stuff, so I just pulled a few of the focused inquiries from those online courses that I thought, maybe if you're in that mood for inquiry, and that's kind of where your wisdom is leading you, they could be maybe helpful to really stay with the retreat, and bring the attention to someplace deeper than just the narration and task listing and all the stuff that's wandering around on that particular radio station. So.
No.
Yeah.
So going forward, this afternoon session, we're going to kind of switch off, Jen and I. So I'll do this afternoon. You'll be doing
tomorrow morning.
And we'll just switch back and forth. This afternoon session, the 2 handouts, one is the Wisdom of Joy Retreat Contemplations, which is really a summary of meditation, of the path, and of ground of being. There's so much that I was really only able to, lightly touch onto these topics in the handout. There's so much to them. So I really wanted to get more into talking about what this all means. When we talk about the path of accumulation, what exactly are we saying? And how do we relate to that personally? Because that's the part where it becomes part of our experience, when we relate to the materials personally. And then the other handout is 12 links of dependent arising, which is basically, if we look at our mind, this is actually what's happening inside our mind all day long, every day. And if we understand that, we can stop the habitual pattern of the kind of way our mind processes and drives our behavior, which is one way, a very powerful way to awaken. If we stop our habitual behavior and conduct and thinking, it creates space for wisdom to come in, for a new way to experience the world. So we'll probably be doing that maybe tomorrow or Sunday. I think for this session, I think we've covered pretty much everything. Does anyone have any questions? We will be doing a meditation, just sitting till lunch, but we do have space for questions.
Do I understand correctly that the actual meditation at 1 is optional?
Yes. Yeah, it's 1:30 to 2:15. Yeah, and of course it's optional. Yeah.
Yes, you may. Oh, thanks, David. Jeanette?
It isn't exactly a question as much as an awareness.
Jeanette, 1 sec. Can you give her, because I want the people on Zoom to be able to hear.
As I was reading some of the handouts beforehand, and yours, Jen, as somebody who's trained in trauma therapy, the first thing I thought was, oh my God, this is so trauma-informed. And I'm like, wow, she really gets it. And then as I read and sat with it, I'm like, but she's not talking about trauma at all. There's no focus on it. And it felt like something in me kind of released.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so happy for that.
And the teaching and the trainings that I've received about trauma and the work I've done myself and with other people have really cultivated this depth of compassion for suffering in me. That's just huge. And I signed up for this retreat, or asked if I could participate, Ani, without even knowing what it was called. And then after the fact, I'm like, the wisdom of joy. I'm like, oh yeah, I really need that. Because the trauma has given me the compassion.
Oh, beautiful.
But I've kind of gotten stuck in that. And I forgot that there's something ebullient, that's effervescent that's here too. So at any rate, it's an observation and just
It's
deep
gorgeous.
gratitude.
Thank you so much for sharing that. How beautiful. Thank you so much. And that is such thank you. It's not that exploring and being with other human beings in a healing capacity under the label or theme of trauma is something that we're against. It's that stuckness that you're talking about. It's the can we let it go piece. Okay, it came, and we're abiding with it, and we're present for it in a deep, non-resistant way, and time to move on. So how beautiful. Thank you.
I'd like to share something that is so relative and absolute to what we're talking about. Recently, I asked Khenpo Lobsang about the Great Stupa that's up off of Dream Way. The Karmapa figure is holding this really special mudra, and it's like this, which is so righteous. Like, just looking at it, I'm like, that is so badass. And I asked Khenpo Lobsang what that mudra was. And he was really intentional about how he described it to me in its most simplistic form. So this mudra, and you guys will never forget this now, this mudra that the Karmapa figure is holding at that great stupa is the mudra of gently holding.
Beautiful.
Of gently holding. And that image up there at the great stupa, like once I realized that, I was just like, that's what I'm gonna do too. That's the teaching, right? The gently holding. And I just think that that's so beautiful and so joyful, and I wanted to share that because how many of us have been up there and have seen the Karmapa, right, the image, but haven't really followed through with exactly what that is. And it was so profound for me, and I just wanted to share that with everyone else to think about the gently holding. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to say anything to that? Okay. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. I think so. Feel good to you?
We have about 25 minutes. If we have more questions or anybody wants to express anything, or we want to just take about 20-25 minutes to just do sitting? Yeah? Okay.
Have a beautiful retreat. I'm so happy. I'm so happy.